Chapter 9 on appeal. There is no welcome to your appeal brochure that you get after you are condemned. Nobody sits you down and explains what you have to file and how much time you have to file it. You are guaranteed a direct appeal to the state appellate courts, the Court of Criminal Appeals, and the Alabama Supreme Court, but that's really it. The state of Alabama does not want to make it easy on you, and they offer zero assistance to death row inmates. Unfairly convicted, prejudice at trial, confessions coerced, constitutional rights violated, your attorney sucked, good luck with that. There is no post-conviction help once you're condemned. You are on your own, and the state does everything it can to make it difficult. A one-year statute of limitations, attorney general who create the law that control the process and keep federal review from happening later, and a host of other obscure procedures and rules that seem to prevent you from revisiting anything once a court has ruled on it. And in Alabama, judges are elected based on how many people they send to death row, not on how many people they let off.
I called for Chap's office when I could, and the secretary assured me he was working on my appeal and promised to get him a message. I called. Sometimes making me laugh.
Shh.
Every week it seemed like I would read about another robbery in Birmingham. Because it's the same description as Quincy's and Mr. Winders and Captain D's. The cooler killer. The cooler kid hasn't slowed down at all. At times when the suspect's description, it seems, oh God, bro, start over.
No, keep going.
Okay. The cooler killer hadn't slowed down at all. At the time when there was a suspect description, it was the same as smothered man. Black male, 5'11", 180 pounds. It had learned that I was 6'2", 230 pounds. And it didn't matter that I was locked up and the same crimes kept happening. I thought about the families of the victims. Were they reading the paper? Were they seeing the similarities? Did they ever wonder if the state had convicted the wrong man? I sent for Chaps a note along with the crime report that I found in the paper. Just trying to help, I wrote. Thank you so much.
I wondered if it ever kept him awake at night. What was it like for him knowing that I was innocent and sleeping on death row? Did he feel anything? I didn't know at the time that my mom had started writing per chat letters, pleading and begging for him to save my life, asking him to protect her boy. She wasn't happy with what was said about me in court. I was her baby, and listening to the lies had been a strain on her. Our neighbor, Miss Wesley May, had brought my mom to see me at Holtman after my 90-day probation was over and I was allowed to visit. These two ladies had never driven so far alone and had gotten lost trying to find their way to Atmore. They showed up on a Friday night 2 hours after visiting time and was over. But the warden had some sympathy for them in their Sunday's best, making their way to the prison, so he let me have a visit for about 20 minutes.
I hugged my mom as long as I could. Another thing that wasn't usually allowed. She smelled like laundry soap and rose water, but she looked tired. She smelled like, there were dark circles under her eyes, and I could see new lines around her mouth that weren't there a few months ago. God will fix this, she kept saying. God can do everything but fail, baby. God is going to fix this right up for you.
Yes, ma'am, I said. I could see one of the guards look surprised at hearing me speak. I didn't have the heart to tell them what I was doing with God. God didn't live in this place. If there was a God and he thought it was okay to send me here while I was still alive, well, then he wasn't my God. Not anymore, not ever again.
You swim with Lester next time. I don't want you to driving all this way alone. You got that?
You okay, baby? My mom reached her hand out and touched my cheek. She wasn't the only one with new lines on her face and circles under her eye. I could see her eyes filling with tears.
I'm okay, Mama. Don't worry about me. This place is fine. They're treating me real fine. I knew it was wrong to lie to her, but I didn't live. My bad, guys. But I believe that the lies that will ease the pain, or protect someone's heart, and the lies that and the lies that needed to be told. She had already lived apart from me. If Alabama had its ways, she was going to live.
Come on.
She was going to have to live. Let me get comfortable. She was going to have to live through them, put me through them. I was going to comfort her every single moment that I could, even if it meant telling her a million lies. Now, we're only 5 minutes away. We're only a few minutes away.
Keep going. You're not
Read
done.
this book, bro. Don't spend them crying. I'm just fine, but I could use some of your cooking. I could use a nice juicy hamburger in there.
My mama laughed, and I tried to memorize that sound in my mind. I wanted to hang on to that laugh and hear it in my head instead of the endless moaning I heard all day, every day in the road.
Your attorney sent me a couple of letters. He's going to get you out of here. He's working really hard.
She carefully unfolded 2 letters she had brought. They were addressed to her. I hadn't heard from perhaps yet, but I had called his office. His secretary said that he had filed a motion for a new trial.
I looked at the first letter. It was dated a few weeks before my sentencing.
Okay. Mama, this first letter is from before I came here.
Well, I've been writing to him so he know who you are. I wanted to tell him that what they said that your trial was a lie. They lied on your name. My son is no killer. She dabbed her eyes with a white handkerchief.
It's okay. I patted her hand. Let me have a look. The letter had the law office Sheldon Perchaps at the top, and my mom's address below.
November 25th, 1986. Dear Miss Hinton, thank you for your letter dated November 17th, 1986. I want you to know that I will continue to do everything I know how to do to protect your son. His case is going to be appealed, and I think I'm going to win the appeal. The appeal will probably take a couple of years. After that, he will probably have to try his case again. The next time we try it, we will do some things different. I still think he has a good opportunity to be acquitted of these charges. I will continue to do everything I know how to do. Sincerely, Sheldon Perhaps.
I didn't want to sit on death row for a couple years. I wanted him to get me out now, but there was nothing I could do. He would do some things differently. Differently next time. How about getting me an expert with 2 eyes? I still cringe when I thought about my expert getting crucified on the stand. Would they give me more money for a better expert if they tried me again? It seemed like if you were poor, you were good as guilty. I picked up the second letter, and it was dated just a month ago.
March 2nd, 1987. Dear Mrs. Hinton, I intended to continue to do everything I know how to do to protect your son. The case is in the process of being appealed. The appeal will take quite some time to complete. It is in my opinion that we have a good opportunity to win this case on appeal. If we do, we will have a new trial. At the new trial, I'm going to hire another expert to testify about the bullets. I also believe that your son is not guilty of killing anyone. I will continue to do everything I know how to do to protect him. I am sorry that I missed your call when you called the other day, and I am certainly glad you wrote me to tell me about it. Please feel free to contact me whenever you need. Sincerely, Sheldon Purchase.
My heart broke at what I read between the lines of his letter. My mom calling him and writing him and asking him to protect me. What I didn't know at the time was that she was also sending him money orders for $25 every time she wrote, pleading and begging him for help. Here is all my money, save my son. Did he laugh at those little money orders? $25 was nothing to a man who ate $1,000 for breakfast. The $25 might as well have been $100,000 to my mom. Perhaps didn't know what it meant to be poor, to have just enough to make it through a month without a penny to spare. An extra $10 needed for an emergency would mean you had no water or no electricity for a month, or maybe even longer than a month, because you had to pay a reconnect fee to turn it back on. I know why my mom never told me about the money. I would have put it into it, never understanding that she needed to send that money because she needed the comfort of knowing she was doing everything she could to save her son's life. I would have taken that comfort from her.
I knew my mom felt helpless. We all feel helpless.
And at the time, I did not want to think my attorney was taking advantage of that helpless. I couldn't think about that. It was my only chance. I didn't tell my mom that he had told me he would handle my automatic appeal and he was off my case. It was as if he already was planning to lose. I was hoping he would have a change of heart. I was hoping the man who called him during my trial said he was a killer and would call him again. I was hoping for a miracle, but planning my escape.
I hugged my mom and Miss May goodbye. My mom promised to come with Lester next time, and I think Miss May was relieved. Visiting days were every Friday at first, and then they were changed to once a month for death row visits. No weekend visits for us. They didn't want to make it easier on our families and friends. Lester had to take the day off work, but as soon as he was allowed, he made the 7-hour road trip drive every Friday. Sometimes he worked the night shift on Thursday and still drove all day Friday. I used to worry about him falling asleep at the wheel, but he was always the first one at the prison waiting to get in. He brought his mom and my mom, and the 3 of them were the only bit of light in his darkness.
I don't remember those early days too well because I was so full of hatred and rage. I don't remember those early visits too well because I was so full of hatred and rage. That was all I could do was smile and chit chat. If they noticed something was wrong, they had never said. But every once in a while, I could see Lester watching me. He knew better than anyone, but I don't think he knows. Again, I can't see these more words. I might be blind. He knew me better than anyone, but I don't think he could have known I don't think he could have known what I was thinking. I had never felt such a darkness in me. I couldn't control my thoughts. Every hour of the day, I imagined how I would kill McGarrigan. My days and nights were spent watching and listening. Even at visiting hours, I was memorizing the routes of the guards. There had to be a way out, a moment where I could sneak out over the fence and hide in the back of the car, take off running. It wasn't logical, and I didn't have a plan, but I watched and waited because there had to be a way to escape. It just had to be.
Wouldn't it be better if they killed me while I was trying to escape rather than killing me strapped to a chair? The only hesitation that I had, I didn't want people to think I had run because I was guilty. I wanted to prove my innocence more than anything. I wasn't a killer, but I wanted to kill. Inside, I was becoming the monster the world thought I was, and I was afraid Lester and my mom would see it. So I lied to them about how things were. Food is fine, the guards are nice, the other inmates are quiet and keep to themselves. I lied every week. I'm sleeping just as fine. Just fine. I have everything I need. I lied, and then I lied some more.
The reality was we had to eat breakfast at 3 a.m., lunch at 10 a.m., and dinner at 2 p.m. And every night I was hungry. Every day I was hungry. I weighed 220 when I got here. I had lost 10 pounds at counting, but I could see losing a lot more than I wanted here. Breakfast was some powdered eggs, a biscuit so hard you could bounce it off the wall, and a little spoonful of what was supposed to be jelly. They had a whole prison to feed, so the death row inmates had to eat early in the morning. At 2:45 a.m., the guards would start screaming, "Breakfast, breakfast, breakfast." If I was lucky enough to have fallen asleep, I would bolt upright in the dark, thinking I was under attack. Lunch was some bland patty of an unknown meat substance. I had heard it was horse meat, but I hoped that was a bad joke. Dinner was some formless patty, but at night it was called a cutlet. On Fridays there was a soggy fish cutlet. There were canned beans or peas or some other vegetables in a watery liquid that smelled slightly of tin and mold and tasted metallic and bitter. Instant mashed potatoes that would turn into a dry powder in your mouth. I was hungry every day. It was a physical hunger, yes, but it was also mental hunger. I felt empty and hollow, a hunger for home, for my own bed and my family and my church, and for friends I could laugh and sit with. I was alone all day with the hunger so big it felt like I was falling with nothing to grab on. Like when you lean back in a chair and have that moment of panic when you're gone too far and you have to jerk yourself upright so you fell about to try to save yourself. I had that panic of falling all day, every day. I was hungry for my freedom. I was hungry for my dignity. I was hungry to be a human again. I didn't want to be known as inmate Z468. I was Anthony Ray Hinton. People called me Ray. I used to love to laugh. I had a name and a life and a home, and I wanted it so bad. The wanting had a taste. I wasn't going to survive here. I felt like eventually I would hollow out so completely I would just disappear into a kind of nothingness. They were all trying to kill me, and I was going to escape. I had no choice.
Person's motion for a new child was postponed for over 6 months until the final day on July 31st, 1987. It was denied. It was exactly 2 years to the day that I got arrested.
In Alabama at the time, we had 42 days to file a notice of appeal and another 28 days to file a brief. I did find this out because of Purchase came to death row to visit me and talked about a strategy for my appeal. Number one.
No.
No, alright.
Oh, gang. I thought it was number one. No, I found this out by listening to the other death row inmates talking about their appeals.
Oh, it was like a legal class going on all day long. And while I still wasn't speaking, I did listen to the other inmates talking to each other.
Man, you got to call Brian Stevenson. He'll get you a lawyer in here. Brian Stevenson set my lawyer up from Ohio, and another guy came from DC.
You have to tell them to read your transcript and see if they have a prejudiced jury.
Tell him about the guy who lied.
It went on all day, and I could hear the other inmates arguing case law with each other, talking about their appeal. I learned that in Alabama, just they started electrocuting people again in 1983 after taking a break for 18 years. Now people were afraid that they were going to start giving out dates to everyone who had been there a minute and who didn't have an attorney trying to stop the state.
He got a bunch of lawyers taking him out. A whole set of resources. A the whole resources.
I heard he's watching every single person on the road, tracking everybody. He's like Santa Claus. He's gonna know if you're naughty or nice.
All day long, I heard the name Brian Stevenson, but I didn't care about Brian Stevenson. I cared about Purchase and what he was doing for my case. I had an attorney, and for that, I was grateful. It sounded like a lot of the guys were waiting for one to magically show up from the good gracious of one attorney named Stevenson. I didn't believe in God, and I didn't believe in Santa Claus, and I didn't ask any questions because one thing I had learned from my trial is that if you say anything, people will lie about it if it helps their cases out. I didn't trust the other inmates, and I didn't trust the guards. I didn't even trust Pershing, but he was better than nothing. If I had to ask the guards for something, I wrote it down on the inmate stationery and handed it to them. I didn't know if they thought I was dumb or what, but they knew that I spoke when I had my reasons. I think they were happy I didn't speak. It was one less inmate they had to deal with.
The guards brought me to the shower every other day. Sometimes at 6 p.m., other times it would be at midnight. There was no schedule. A guard walked in front of me and a guard walked behind me. Because it's funny.
Keep going.
My hands were cuffed for the first 3 months, and after that I could go to the shower without being cuffed. There was no privacy in the shower. There had always been 2 guys showering at once and 2 guards watching. The water would be scalding hot or icy cold. It just depended on the day. And maybe what the guards feel like doing to entertain themselves. Sounds what?
Keep going.
You had to soap up and get out fast in under 2 minutes. The guards watched it the whole time, even the female guards. There was no pleasure in the female seeing what they could use anyway. We were like farm animals being hosed off in the barn. Once a day we were brought out to individual cages in the yard that we could exercise in or pace back and forth. Nobody had to walk as the guards called it, and a lot of the guards just stayed in their cells. They didn't want to change or shower or exercise. I always took my 15-minute or 20 minutes outside. I was looking for an escape. I could see the prison parking lot from my cage, on the yard, and the wood that lived away from my home. I just needed to get because of the woods.
Keep going.
Every moment of every day, I was watching for a weakness in the system, and despite the prosecution had both a simple, I couldn't scale a 15-foot razor.
No bees, but
Yes, ma'am.
if you shoot for an A, get a B, it's okay, but you shoot for B's and get them C's. It's a hot mess.
Yes, ma'am.
It's about to be over. Bye-bye, y'all.
Bye. Not popular. Let's keep going. No, I don't edit. Come on. Come on, keep going.
Inside me, one of the guards and guns trained on me. I thought about digging a tunnel. There were rats and roaches that crawled in and out of my cell through a little vent near the ceiling. If they could get in, I thought then I would be able to get out. I stared at that vent every day. There was always something lurking there. Always an antenna or a whisker peeking through. Every night I could hear the rats scurrying and scratching across the floor. I imagined the roaches swarming the walls at night and hiding back in the vents during the day to watch me. I was trapped. Those roaches had more freedom than I did. The sounds at night were like being in the middle of a horror movie, carrying around.
Where you at?
Men moaning around and screaming and crying.
Everyone cried at night. One person would stop and another would start. It was the only time you could cry anonymously. I blocked out the sound. I didn't care about anyone's tears or their screams. Sometimes there was laughter, maniacal laughter, and that was the most frightening. There was no real laughter on death row. Those that could sleep and yelled out in their dreams as if they were being chased. Sometimes they cursed. I don't think I slept more than 15 minutes at a stretch ever in those first months and years. It makes you crazy to never sleep. It makes you go to a place where there's no light, no hope, no dreams, and no chance for redemption. It makes you think of the shadows and demons and death and revenge and of killing before you can be killed.
There was death and ghosts everywhere. The row was haunted by the men who died in the electric chair. It was haunted by the men who chose to kill themselves rather than be killed. Their blood flowed in the cement cracks of the floor like a slow river until it dried and then split apart under the weight of the creatures that crept over it in the night. The roaches had blood on them on them, and they carried it from cell to cell. The rats nibbled at the dried blood and carried it back into the walls and vents, where it blew around in the air like darkened dust and settled over all of us. It was hard to hang yourself in death row, but easy to bash your head open against the cement wall over and over again until it splattered the walls and your pulpy flesh filled in the cracks and divots like spackle and hardened into a stain that would never come clean. The row was haunted by remorse and regret and the deaths of all who had died at the hands of the guilty and of all those who had not died at the hands of the innocent but wanted justice and for their killers to be found. Freedom was a ghost that haunted us all on the road, but most of all we were haunted by a past we could not go back and change. Lost in grief and a cold madness that defied words floated in the grime filth that we were all quoted in. Hell was real, it had an address and a name, death row, home and prison, where love and hope went to die.
In 1988, the Court of Criminal Appeals affirmed my conviction. I didn't hear from Purchase, but I had got a copy of my appeal in the court's response. There were 5 issues. Purchase raised in my appeal. He said Judge Garrett made an error in combining the 2 court appeal cases and not granting his motion to serve. He also said that there were 2 more errors when there were no test bloods entered into evidence. Finally, he said that the court never proved I was linked to the 2 murders because they had no direct evidence I was there. And finally, that they would have been allowed to submit my polygraph test as evidence. The Court of Criminal Appeals disagreed with everything. Purchase sent me a letter in April of 1989. He was appealing my case to the Alabama Supreme Court. I had been on there for over 2 years.
April 11th, 1989. Mr. Anthony Ray Henson, inmate number Z46. Dear Anthony, I presented an oral argument for you to the Alabama Supreme Court yesterday. I got the impression that they were interested in the argument that I made and that we've got a pretty good opportunity to reverse your convictions to get a new trial. The court has ordered that additional briefs be filed and that they require approximately 2 weeks. After that, they will take the case for their consideration. I am unable to tell you what exactly an opinion from them, but I've got a good feeling about this case. If the convictions are overruled, then we will have to prepare to defend these cases again. We will also have to prepare to defend the Quincy case. I've got a number of ideas about some things that we will do that will be new to each of the cases. All cases will continue to have very serious legal problems within them, and I expect to take advantage of every legal opportunity that is presented to us. One of the things that I think we will have to do is hire another expert. Even though our expert was willing to help us, I don't think he was too persuasive with the jury. I thought our presentation to the jury with Mr. Payne was excellent, but he crumbled under the cross-examination. There really are a lot of things that we can do in addition to getting a new expert.
Oh, if the Supreme Court does not order a new trial to you, then I still think we're gonna have it's an opportunity to appeal this court to the case of the United States Supreme Court. The appeal I would take to the U.S. Supreme Court is not financed or paid for by anybody. Someone in your family will have to find a way to pay for the attorney's fees. Your case is so unique that I think the U.S. Supreme Court will listen to your appeal. I really think that sooner or later we're going to win some of these cases.
I read the letter at least 5 times. I did have a question. Why didn't all of these other things the first time around? And what about my innocence? Why didn't my appeal say anything about the fact that they had the wrong guy? The U.S. Supreme Court, that was crazy. He knew nobody in my family had the money to give them. I hope that the Alabama Supreme Court ruled soon and ordered a new trial. I hadn't found a way to escape, and I still wasn't ready to take my own life. I wanted to prove that I was innocent, but I didn't know how much more I could take. I had to get out of this place one way or another.